Let's start with the tactics right away, because I think that's the place to start, where the big discussion here, it seems to be nuance is dead, obviously, on the internet. So there's no way to comprehend the fact that that Koeman could have potentially got his tactics wrong. At the same time, his team is nowhere near as talented as they need to be to run with Bayern Munich, right? So it's impossible in our brains to figure out if both are true, because a manager either has a job or doesn't have a job. And if every result deals with a manager having needing to lose his job based on not being good enough for that job, that means that there's no nuance. You can't have a squad not good enough, and you can't have a squad in development. It can't be a work in progress. Yesterday, we saw both a squad that is a work in progress and not good enough, but there were some alarming things with the way that Koeman set up his team. That said, I think you and I both were talking offline. It's going to sound like we're coming off as Koeman apologists based on the tactics, based on the personnel he has available. But yeah, I mean, Barcelona just isn't good enough. Let's start there.
It's the ugly truth. You're 100% right. And the quicker we come to, like, we understand that, the better it'll be throughout the entire season to comprehend what's happening. And again, I think we just have, and a lot of Barca fans, and I say this in the nicest way, there's a lot of Barca fans that became fans in probably the best era of this club's history. And they've been, to a certain extent, spoiled with arguably the best football they're probably going to see in their lives. So to them, seeing something like this is like, oh my God, what the hell is this? But hey, this is more realistic than what we were seeing in the Pep Guardiola days. So like you were saying, this is a mixture of everything. And before the game, I said it on my YouTube channel, let's remain calm. We got to be realistic. We are a work in progress. And on top of that, we have a bunch of important injuries up top. So we had to play against Bayern freaking Munich with Luke de Jong. Let that sink in, because the other option was Demir. He's 17, 18. We were without Ansu Fati, without Kun Agüero, without Dembele, and Coutinho was on the bench and played 30 minutes after being almost out for a year. We got to be realistic. Sergi Roberto, he's not my cup of tea, and I didn't want him to play, but that doesn't mean that I don't understand why Koeman probably had no other option, or was one of the few options that he had. Serginho Dest picked up the knock against Canada and the CONCACAF qualifiers. He was on the bench, but he wasn't fit to play 90 minutes. It's the ugly truth. We just got to accept that. And on top of that, let's be real. In front of us was a juggernaut that last year could have easily repeated the Champions League if it wasn't for a certain, I don't know if you know him, Robert Lewandowski, being injured against PSG. But Bayern are still, you could argue that Bayern Munich are still the best team in the world.
Yeah, I think you should. I think thinking back about it, that while we're assigning blame in different directions as to why it was a 3-0, obviously there was a lot of shade thrown Eric Garcia's way because he can't handle Robert Lewandowski. Quick little note on that. I'm not going to say too much about it. I continue to be a bit of an Eric Garcia apologist, but the reason I do is because just like Barcelona, Eric Garcia is a 20-year-old center back who's dealing with the best number 9 in the world. So I don't know what people expected. They want him to, when the first goal that was a deflection off his backside, that's not what you're supposed to do. You have to remain stationary. And so that instinct, that poor instinct, the idea that that's just going to a perpetually bad habit that he'll never be able to break. That means that he's not good enough. He's not Champions League material. That's the kind of things I see. And obviously no one is going to be Champions League material against Robert Lewandowski when you're dealing with so much pressure. And when the activations of Bayern Munich, and this is kind of where I want to get in the nuance too about the blame. So I'm going to actually start with the blame to Ronald Koeman. I think we explained why apologetically you and I both agree that this is not the right moment to relieve him of his duties. Even if, and I can tell you that with the relationship between he and Laporta and all the things that they've been going back and forth with in the media, when it's time for Koeman to go, Laporta will relieve him of his duties. I think he's already been pretty clear about that. So in this instance, even if Laporta lost your faith as a president when dealing with the Messi situation, Laporta at least should have some of your confidence that he will cut ties with Koeman when not a moment too soon, or not a moment too late. Let's put it that way. But I think Koeman a little bit let Roberto and Luke de Jong down, actually, when looking at those tactics. The idea that as the right wing back, Demir in that situation was not going to work just defensively, knowing that they were going to have to defend as much as they did. I know the possession stats were in favor of Barcelona, but the line of confrontation is tactically what's important here. And Bayern's line of confrontation was in Barcelona's half. In like 30 to 40 yards outside of Barcelona's goal. And so the line of confrontation was where it was that possession didn't matter for Barcelona. Okay, so let's start there with the pressure. That said, for Roberto to play the right wingback spot, you have to think that not only could Oscar Mingueza have probably even done better at that instance, but you had Araujo basically playing as a right back when that being Barcelona were trying to get out. And the activation was not to Araujo's side, but rather it was to Eric Garcia and Jordi Alba and Pedri's side. And that's why Jordi Alba turned the ball over 24 times, because when Barcelona were trying to get forward, they were looking to get it to Alba up the flank as fast as possible, and he would lose the ball. Same thing with Memphis, where Memphis lost the ball 20 occasions, but that's because you want them to be creating. And they also did have a few successful dribbles, and they were the release valves and the release outlets. That said, Bayern Munich said, just like what I said, that I can't see many other starting 11s other than the one he went with in that 3-5-2, which is really a 5-3-2. And that meant that Luuk de Jong, for the first time ever, looking at the heat map, had to play next to Pedri, who he'd never played next to or never played with before. And it was no surprise that those two were not combining. Bayern knew where Pedri wanted to put the ball better than Luuk de Jong did, which is, again, not a compliment to Luuk de Jong, but I also thought his movement based on making a debut it was fine. He's not quick. He couldn't get to the balls that Barcelona needed him to get to. And you're dealing with Upamecano, who's quickly rising as one of the best center back prospects and potentially one of the best center backs in the world in short order. And on Roberto, because Bayern Munich were choosing not to pressure Araujo because they wanted Araujo to play with the ball at his feet, and he gave the ball away in certain instances because he's not the ball playing center back that Garcia and Piqué are. And then on Roberto's side, they also wanted him to be the one to have to dribble at people. So he had 0 dribbles, but he also attempted 0. It wasn't Roberto's game. It wasn't the opportunity for him to be in that instance. And he gave the ball away 9 times, again, as opposed to the 24 for Alba on the other side, but Roberto also did nothing with the ball. And I know people say that it's all Roberto, but Roberto has a job to do. He is a particular player that has been around the club now for 9 years he's been around the first team. I think most Kool-Aids know who he is, and he is not the player to be playing as a right wing back. Him and Dembele, right? They're not the same player in any way, and you needed Dembele. You didn't need Roberto. So, do you pull a captain off at halftime? It's a difficult thing to do. Should he have been started in the first place? Should you put him in Gaetha, right? Do you ruin Roberto by not inserting him into this game? And people would argue that you're ruining Poo. So I think no matter what Koeman could do, it wasn't going to be the right choice, but he certainly didn't make the proper adjustments as quick as he should have.
But that's the thing. I completely agree with your assessment. And the thing is, if Koeman didn't pick Sergi Roberto as that right wing back, then the other option was Mingueza, which, don't get me wrong, he could have done better than Sergio Roberto, but then again, it wouldn't have been that more substantial that it would have made a big difference. So at the end of the day, and again, I know I'm going to sound like a Koeman apologist, but it's just what Piqué said. It is what it is. You had to choose between Sergio Roberto or Mingueza. Mingueza could have done a little bit better, probably. But then again, Luuk de Jong, who else was there to pick? Demir?
Yeah.
Like if a 17, 18-year-old Coutinho wasn't fit for 90 minutes. So at the end of the day, that was another thing that because Bayern Munich knew that.
Well, Rafa, let me ask you though, what was the other option? Not even in player for player, because with the idea of what Luuk de Jong was supposed to do, being that release foul with his back to goal, you can't put Demir in that instance, right? So it would have to be Memphis as the number 9, and then it would be Coutinho or Demir underneath him. And is that a better option, right? Does it?
I think it's a better option, but Coutinho, I don't know if he was fit for 90 minutes. And Demir, putting him in the starting 11 with all that pressure, I don't know if that was like the thing to do. Luuk de Jong didn't work out. He is really, really slow. And I think that Bayern Munich knew that, and that in the end benefited them because they could just pressure even further high up because they had no danger. They knew that Luuk de Jong or Memphis weren't going to take advantage of the space they were leaving at their backs. So if we had, let's say, an Ansu Fati or a Dembele, that would have been a different story because Upamecano and Sula, who isn't that fast to begin with, would have been a little bit more worried about Ansu Fati or Dembele using their speed. But when we had Memphis and Luuk de Jong, especially Luuk de Jong, they could pressure even higher up, and they didn't think about that aspect of the game. So I think everything because of the players that we didn't have, it was just the perfect cocktail of, sadly for Barcelona, to exploit all our weaknesses that we have as a club in general and that we have at this current moment.
Yeah, I mean, optimistically, Barcelona, they do have to play Bayern Munich one more time, but Bayern are not, or let's say that they're not going to face any teams like Bayern who are going to derail them from their goals, right? This loss, 3-0, it doesn't, actually the worst news out of this is that Alba's out for a month and Pedri's out for 2 to 3 weeks. That's actually the worst news because, looking ahead to La Liga, Atletico Madrid still has done nothing that's inspired me that they would win the Liga over Barcelona. I mean, not say the Barca is better, but I mean, this could be a 4-team race with Sevilla, Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid. And the other three have not shown anything that they are all conquering teams like a Bayern Munich. So it is an instance where you had to look in the mirror, and it was one of those where, I think people still at their heart, they begin a match believing that the players, especially Piqué and Busquets and Frankie de Jong and Memphis Depay and these world-class players, I think there's this belief, especially at the Camp Nou, where historically Barcelona are not taken to the butcher like that. And so Bayern really were that much more dominant. And so it's always this, you wake up from this nightmare and say, oh, the nightmare's not over yet, but we're not good enough to win the Champions League. And of course, and I totally understand that emotionally people have that reaction. And I don't want to tell people like, get over this thing, right? I don't want people to move past it. Because it's true that it's whether it's true that Fati and Dembele and Alba and Pedri, even when everybody is back and everybody is fit and everybody's healthy, and Dest and Aguero, I'm almost done, right? I think that's everybody. So once you get everybody back in and Coutinho's 90 minutes fit, I think that's still a squad that can win the Liga. I don't think we learned anything new. That's why I said the headlines more from Bayern Munich than trying to learn something about the team. And the other point too that I push back on is the idea of the youth, right? That it's a lose-lose situation, because was Koeman brave to put on Alejandro Balde, give him his debut against Bayern Munich, to put on Gabi, who he's seen and trusted before, right, and Yusuf Demir, who's now wearing the number 11 shirt? Is he brave to put those youngsters on in the second half? I talked myself into the fact that no, I mean, I think it would have been brave for him to start those players, to start Balde instead of Alba, because Alba was dealing with a fever and already had a partially torn hamstring. So probably not great to start him in that match. But he didn't want to do that to Balde. He didn't want to throw too much on him because Balde has been overwhelmed in other instances with Barcelona B against difficult opponents. And of course, Balde was going to leave space in behind. So that scoreline was going to be a lot worse with Balde, but you could have got better things out of seeing just how well he worked on that left wing that came in. And to that, the point too, is when Gabi and Balde and Demir came on, Bayern Munich were already in second gear. They had already taken it to second or third gear. They were already in cruise control, and Balde got in behind a bunch. And he also was partially at fault for the third goal. So both those things could be true. And that's what happens with young players. So it's an understanding we have to be realistic about where these players are in their journey, where the club is as far as even being healthy to compete in the Liga. And that continues to be what needs to happen. That continues to be the focus. And I know it's impossible to forget where Barca is as a club and this being a milestone, but I don't know, Rafa, I've already kind of moved on. Maybe it's all the content I've done. I don't know.
No, me too. But I want to pick on your point. And I want to say this, a lot of Barca fans, especially on Twitter, that's the more vocal social media platform that they are in. And it's La Masia this, La Masia that. We want to see this youngster. We want to see this youngster. Then they kill a coach if that coach doesn't put the youngsters they want to see. If that coach doesn't give the youngsters the minutes they think they deserve. And then when a coach puts in a lot of youngsters, which I think Koeman has done a bunch of, then people don't have the patience. And like you were saying, hey, if you put youngsters in, more often than not, they're going to commit errors. So you got to accept the fact that they're going to do that and be patient with them. But a lot of Barca fans aren't. They wanted us to compete. They wanted us to play brave. And we just got to be realistic. For example, Araujo. To me, Araujo, defending, he's our best center back. He's not the most complete. Like you were saying, he still has he has a way to go with the ball at his feet. Eric Garcia is better at him than that. Piqué is better at him than that. Mingueza is better at him than that. But defending-wise, I think Araujo is a monster. He's just 22 or something like that.
Yeah, he's 21 years old, yeah.
You were saying Eric Garcia might have to get a little bit better at the defending aspect of it, he's really good with the ball at his feet, but he's still 20. Again, you were saying same with Pedri. Pedri isn't even 20. Frenkie is quote unquote the oldest one, and I don't think Frenkie is even 25. So Balde is a youngster. Gavi is a youngster. Demir is a youngster. Des, when he plays, he's gonna commit errors. He's really young. So we just gotta. Again, I'm sounding like a broken record, but if we ask for young players and for young players to be given minutes, then we just got to put our patience hat. And when we play them, they're going to commit errors. We're going to concede goals. They're going to lose the ball in certain situations. And we just can't be screaming at the sky every single time, because that's what's going to happen. So again, I'm just urging everybody.
Yeah.
Let's breathe in.
It's not just negative or not just positive. Because Araujo was definitely the biggest positive from this match. He was the man of the match for Barcelona. What he was doing defensively against Leroy Sané that is top shelf. That is Champions League caliber defending. He had in that game 5 clearances, 3 of 4 on ground duels, 1 of 1 on aerial duels. But Bayern Munich knew what he wasn't good at. And that is a testament to what Barcelona is right now, right? They don't have these completely well-rounded and finished products. He went 1 for 5 on long balls, and he lost possession 7 times as a center back. And that tells you, once again, that Bayern were forcing him into channels that he's not comfortable playing with the ball at his feet, but his defending on the other side made up for that. His last-ditch defending, again, his dominance on the ground. So Araujo, I think, is a perfect encapsulation of where Barca were in that game. And the same actually could be said of De Jong, too. I know that at 24, he's been around a while. We expect him to be a finished product. I do argue that he's probably a top 10 midfielder in the world. But even in that game yesterday, he gives the ball away 8 times. Compared to 5 for Pedri, 5 with Busquets. But the issue to me yesterday was the fact that Busquets and De Jong, they were under so much pressure, not only dealing with that press for Bayern Munich, but the fact that De Jong was kind of trying to make up with his ball playing for where Busquets couldn't be. And this is another issue where Busquets couldn't cover that horizontal space. And when you're playing against a number 10 or a Raumdeuter, just like Thomas Muller, that is his kryptonite. That is where we see Busquets at his worst, when he can't guard and can't defend a number 10 that's going to continue to pop up and move away and move in all these different directions. And so you saw, some of those giveaways, one of the giveaways by Busquets and De Jong with that combination leads to the first goal. And I believe it also leads to the second goal at some point, at some juncture where they lost possession and Bayern kept not allowing Barcelona to get out of their own half. So for Araujo, yeah, it's good and bad. For De Jong, it's good and bad. And that's the difference between a Bayern Munich and a Barcelona, where there's no vaunted protection for an Araujo and for a Pedri. They're issues that they still have because they're 18 years old and they're 21 years old are going to be exploited by, hopefully, only the likes of a Bayern Munich or only the likes of a PSG, right? And if we're trying to measure Barcelona against them, they're certainly going to fall up short for all the reasons that we understand. But if I can come out of that game and say, hey, De Jong did well with what he was given and what his job was, because Barcelona outplayed Bayern Munich for the first 30 minutes. And because of the final scoreline, we do forget that Barcelona were playing in a different way, but they were playing the way they had to play to get some kind of result against Bayern Munich. But the wheels came off the bus around once the first goal was scored in the 33rd minute. And I think this is the other thing that I think people are really criticizing, where there might be a point to this, Rafa, that people are criticizing the players for, once that first goal was scored, it felt like the wind had been taken out of sails. It felt like not even bravery, but the desire that the fight that was necessary was not up to snuff. Did you see that with the team that they recoiled a little bit, accepting their fate?
The thing, I saw that, and don't get me, look, I love Frenkie and I love Pedri, but I was a little bit disappointed with them because we all know what they're capable of. We know how good they are and how good they can be, and we expect them to take the reins of the midfield and control the midfield in a way. And to me, obviously, technically they're amazing, but in this game, I just saw them like in second gear for the most part. I didn't see in them in this game that oomph, that like extra pressing. That I saw them like sometimes Frenkie was trotting back when Bayern went on a counterattack, and I was watching that, screaming at my iPhone, and I was like, Frenkie, like, run, get back, like, you gotta help. And luckily in that play, it was in the first half, Bayern just like passed the ball back and we were able to like reassess defensively. But Frankie was literally just jogging back. And I compare that to when Gavi came in. And Gavi, to me, technically, I'm in love with Gavi. He is amazing. And I think he has all the tools, whether he does it or not remains to be seen, but he has all the technical tools to be something really, really good with Barcelona. But what I loved more about Gavi when he came in, he rebelled. He was like, I don't care. This is Bayern Munich. He was even gave something as dumb as like fouling Bayern Munich players. He was like that rebellious player that was like, you're not going to embarrass us in our stadium. So he was just obviously technically getting the ball, controlling the ball, passing the ball, but he was pressing, he was fouling players. And I just loved that rebellion. And I was like, that's what I want to see from the other players. Just like, yeah, Bayern's better than us, but we can give a kick here, a kick there, foul, just like show some rebellion at least. Like if we're going to go down, let's go down fighting.